Hey, this is Chris with Smoky Creek Woodworks. Today I am refinishing a toy box that I made my sister about 3 years ago now. The kiddos have somehow broken the torsion hinge that I originally installed and put a few dents into the wood that are deep enough to start splintering if I don't address them right now. Not to mention, I have a new nephew that needs his name added to the bottom of the lid with his brother and sister. I was asked not to remove and repair all the dents and scratches since they are made by the kids and show years of use and have sentimental value for my sister. So I needed to be fairly judicious with my work not to completely remove all the scars. This was a great time to use a card scraper to fix and blend all the dents that needed help, but only lightly sand everything else to preserve the evidence of a child's joy in hammering everything in the house with their favorite toy. And I mean everything. I decided to sand the outside of the toy box to get the best finish possible because of how much work needed done on the splintering dents and the bottom of the lid where I needed to remove the entire finish to be able to write my new nephew's name. I did not refinish the inside of the box, however, just to show more of the aging. And because I used shellac, I was able not to sand the rest of the box back to bare wood because of how well this finish blends into itself. This allowed me to use a scuff sanding technique that allowed me to keep more scars, more dents in the wood, just to show more character and hopefully, keep my sister happy. While I was working on the toy box, I found the glue on the back rail had failed. This caused the entire rail to wiggle just a little bit. And unfortunately, this means that my original tenon was not a good enough fit and allowed this failure. The solution I came up with for the loose rail was to drill two dowels into the rail all the way through the leg, and then to use epoxy as a glue to hopefully fill any gaps that could be filled within that joint. I decided that two dowels were needed in the rail to better prevent any twisting as the lid was open and closed because the back rail is where the hinges lift. To line up the dowels, I had modified a doweling jig that I had tucked away in a drawer by adding a little spacer. And with the guide clamped into place, I drilled through the leg into the rail. Maybe this is an extreme solution, but it was the best thing I could think of to make the joint as sound as possible. With plenty of epoxy, I hammered the dowels into place, and honestly, this stopped any movement or wiggle in the joint immediately without the glue curing. So then I cut away the excess dowel to move on to the next job of trying to make the repair look a whole lot better than it does right now. To try and disguise the repair, I picked up a face plug cutter, and this cutter will allow me to put face grain in place of an in-grain plug. It just helps kind of hide repairs or screw holes. Unfortunately for me, I did not have any of the lumber that I had used to make the toy box. I believe my wood stove may have eaten all the scraps from this project a couple of years ago. So to complete this, I drilled a shallow hole over the ends of the dowels that I had used to fix the rail. All the red oak that I did have do not match the green or the color at all. And despite a full day of testing and even digging through my firewood pile, I still had what seems to me like a very noticeable patch. Another thing that may have made this patch stand out so much is that I used epoxy for gluing in the dowels. Epoxy seems to cure with a very dark glue line that other glues don't seem to have, or at least they're not as noticeable. Luckily, my sister She said she's okay with the look of the repair, so I got to move on to finishing. And for the finish, I used a 1.5 pound ish cut of shellac. I mix it up myself. I'm not really sure how heavy it is. It's a nice glossy finish that's natural. It's supposed to be safe for kids to chew on if they want. And most importantly, it is crazy fast to apply. After 5 or 6 coats, I got the finish to look and feel the way I wanted, so I left it at that. I am super happy with all the subtle figure in this red oak and how the grain patterns are understated from a distance, but become more and more interesting the closer you get to it. It very much complements the design choices that I made while I was designing and building this. From the undercut lid, the curved lower rails, reverse taper on the legs, the toy box looks very simple, but has a classic and timeless look to it, I think. After the shellac is cured, new torsion hinges are installed and tested a few times. These hinges are great for a home with kids and should save the tiny fingers of my niece and nephews, because I don't want an angry phone call from my sister because my furniture hurt the baby.
Okay.
All I have left to do is to deliver the toy box back to the kids and let them make some new memories with the things that they have stored in a handmade box
Separate
from
hinges.
their Uncle Chris. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks.